Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, the IITian Coder. This video is the next level in the STL course. Today we will be talking about an inbuilt data structure in STL, which is vectors. So first I will tell you, this is the code chef online C++ or any language programming editor. You can use this online and it doesn't take any space and it's very easy. So we will be using C++ 14 compiler. So we can use hash include vector. We can use hash include vector to include the vector files, or we can use hash include bits slash stdc dot h. This header file bit slash stdc dot h contains all the STL functions, that is sorting algorithms, data structures, all the things. Though you can include them, hash include any type. Suppose you want algorithms, include algorithms. Suppose you want vector, include vector. Suppose map, include map. Set, you can hash include anything, but it will be better if you use just one header file bit slash stdc++.h and it will take into account everything. Okay, so now let us move on to the initial. What is vector? So you know what is an array, right? An array is a data structure which has various elements 2, 4, 6, but its size is fixed. That's the major problem. Size is fixed. So suppose now you need Suppose now you need 4 or 5 numbers, but the array you have declared is of only size 3. You can't increase it. And suppose you need to make a sorted array, but suppose you want to take only 2 numbers, but the user can give up to 5 numbers. What to do? You can't use arrays. You can use, but it would be not that efficient. You can't change its size as and when you want. But this problem is solved by vectors. Okay, I will get you one thing. What is an array? An array is an integer pointer, right? So you can use pointers and then malloc and delete or new to use an array which can have any size you want and will be dynamically allocated array. But there might be various bugs in that. Suppose you want to implement functions on that dynamically allocated array, it might be difficult for you. So this is vector is already present dynamically allocated array. So this is basically a dynamically allocated array. So now we will move. So you got the point. What are vectors, right? So they are basically just like arrays. You can have any n-dimensional vectors, but they are dynamically allocated. So you can make them in any size, and they have various functions which you can implement easily so that you have your way with the questions easily. So I will explain to you how do we initialize vectors. So let us go to our code editor, vector, then you specify the data type. For simplicity I will use currently int, and then name the vector v. This is the most basic initialization you can do. Okay, now what are the functions on vectors? So it will be vectors name dot pushback. Suppose I want to push back 10. So the vector now becomes let me zoom in. Okay, So v dot pushback 10. So now v becomes 10. Now v dot pushback 20. So now v becomes 10, 20. Now v dot pushback 30. So now v becomes 30. And so this is a vector. Now we want to suppose print the vector. So we say cout v of 0. These are just like arrays. Okay, so see what will happen. We just printed off v of 0. So let it compile. See, it printed 10. So now we want to print v of 0, v of 1, just dynamically allocated arrays, nothing else. V of 2. Ten, 20, 30. Now we will move on to the next part of the initialization. I will comment out this pushback. We can initially set the vectors, the number, the elements that the vector will be having. So it will be v of 10, 20, 30. And a vector is defined. Now we run. So compile. See, 10, 20, 30. So we can initially specify this. Then also we can add v dot pushback 40. Or let us suppose say another 10 or 110. Now we do v of 3. Oh, sorry. See, this mistakes happen even now. Pushback. Okay, 10, 20, 30, 10. Now we will look at another way of initializing vectors. So let me comment this out. Initially, I put the size of the vector. It is a vector of 10 elements. Now, what do? Fill the vector with only one position. So I will fill the vector with, I will tell you about this begin and end and all everything. Just for now, take it as iterator. This is I equals 0, this is I equals step. Vector dot n, comma, fill it with 10. Okay. And now to display that, so we will put for auto x in v see about x. This keyboard is not working today. Oh, I missed the colon. Yeah, so these are some of the ways you can initialize a vector. Now what happened? Expected. We didn't put a comma. What did we do? V dot begin, V dot end, fill. Oh, we didn't put a comma here. So these are the different ways in which you can initialize the vector. Okay. So now I will tell you what is, iterators. If you don't know, I will be making an iterator video on iterators soon. An iterator is just like an iteration variable in an array. So you use I equals 0 to I equals n to iterate on the array and see its different values. Similarly, for vectors, you can either use v of I, but to make the task easy, it is a pointer. So iterators are basically kind of pointers, but not exactly pointers. Okay, like the function is basically like pointer, but they have their own arithmetic in case of vectors. So there are different types of pointers. auto command in STL initializes the iterator to whatever kind you want. Suppose you put here v.begin, so it will initialize IT to an iterator of the kind vector of int. That okay. So these are the commands. Auto.it1 equals v.end, auto it2 equals v.cend, then auto it3 equals v.cbegin, then there is rbegin and cend. Did we miss out on r? Cend, cbegin. Let us make this rbegin for now and make it auto id4 equals v.rend. Okay, so we have a variable it, so we will run a while loop while it is not equal to it1. We will cout star it, and then we increment the it with 1. Okay, let us run this once. So what did you see? It printed out 10. How many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is for this. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for this. Okay. Let's print a cout in the new line. Okay. So you got the point. Now what do we do? What is rbegin? So these were the normal iterators, right? So reverse begin is the reverse iterator. That means if you do an it3 plus plus, the iterator, instead of shifting to the next value in the forward direction, it is a reverse iterator. R emphasizes its reverse, so it will shift to a location which is previous to that location. So it will basically be the reverse of this if you do it plus plus. And the dot begin points to the 0th or the first location, whichever your numbering is, by the way. And r begin points to the end location, whereas rn points to the first location. So this is just the reverse of these. So what do you need to do? While while it4 is not equal to it3, cout star it4 plus plus, not minus minus. Yeah, so I just interchanged it3 and it4. I didn't see that it3 was r begin and it4 was rn. So now what do we do basically? So what should we do? You got the point, that begin, end, and iterators. So now we can use a function. Okay, so let us define another vector of char. This time you can make character vectors also. v1 of b d z a c f q, and what else is comma, last character is b. Okay, let us print this vector now. So for auto character in v1 cout character. Okay, let's put a new line for the next one. As you can see, it prints the characters b, d, z, a, c, f, q, s, b, Now what I will display you is a sort function of STL on vectors. We can keep the sort for the next video. I will just show you that it's just like arrays. Okay, I just pass this vector dot begin and vector dot end in sort function, and what I get is a sorted vector. Okay, see, V D Z A C. Oh, sorry, we sorted the wrong vector. V1 dot begin, V1 dot end. We will get the sorted vector A B B C D F Q S Z. Okay, now what do we need to do? I will display another lower bound function. Okay, so auto pt is equal to lower bound. What does lower bound give? So this is how you pass lower bound: v dot begin comma v dot end, and then the value you need to find the lower bound of. So let us find the lower bound of e. For now, cout star pt. Okay, and cout ended. Okay, let's run it. So what is the lower bound function? Lower bound. So lower underscore bound is a function that takes in first the vector dot begin, whichever vector, like basically not vector dot begin, it takes a range. It can be iterator 1 and iterator 2. So it will find this has to be sorted. Okay, this range has to be sorted, and then the value you want to find the lower bound of. So whatever value I pass here, suppose it's 1 2 3 6 8. This is a vector. Suppose I find the lower bound of 3, it will point to this. Suppose I find the lower bound of 4, it will point to this. So it will point to the value that is equal to or just greater than the given value. That is the function of lower bound. Similarly, we have another function which is upper bound. What does upper bound do? Upper bound, I will display it to you once we run the code. It takes in IT1 and IT2, they have to be again sorted, and a value. And what does this do? Suppose 1 2 3 6 8. Suppose we find the lower bound of 3. Oh, sorry. For suppose we find the lower bound of 4. It will display 6, just like the lower bound function. But suppose we display the upper bound of 3. Lower bound displays 3, but this will display 6. Upper bound function gives the element that is just greater than the past value. Okay, what do these two have in common? Suppose the value that we are finding is not present. Okay, basically max is less than value, then they display. For this it will be less than, for this it will be less than equal to. They display the end. The iterator points to the end of vector. This. Let us look at a code now. See, the lower bound of e is f because e is not present. Similarly, let us do an upper bound on this. It is also f. And let us do an upper bound on c. See, points to D, the element just ahead of C. Whereas the lower bound function points to C. See, you got the point, right? So this is the lower bound and the upper bound function. Now what else do you have in a vector? Suppose you want to insert an element, okay. So you can check for, there is a function known as vector.size, vector name dot size. It will return the size or the number of elements in that vector. The other is that's easy. Suppose in this case 1 2 3 6 8, it will return 5. Vector dot size will return an integer which is 5. Okay, now what else is there? There is a vector dot insert function. Okay, so you can easily insert in the vector at a given position. So let us look at the time complexities. The time complexity of the pushback function, okay, I didn't write that, it is O1. Okay, pushback is O1, and the lower bound and the upper bound are O log n because they do a binary search. Basically the size function is O1 and the because they do a binary search, right? So you got this point, right? Now similarly as the pushback function, there is this pop back function. So it is an O1 function and it basically reduces the size of the vector by 1 and removes the last element of the vector. Then there is this vector dot clear function, v1 dot clear. So it will remove all the elements present in a vector. Basically it will reduce the vector size to 0. Vector dot clear. Okay, now what is another function? Other function is erase function. Okay, so v1 dot erase. So what will this do? So this what v1 dot erase will basically suppose you put here it, so it will erase the position that this iterator is pointing to in the vector. The time complexity of vector dot erase and vector dot clear is basically on, and so vector dot insert function is basically v1 dot insert the position and then the value. So suppose I want to insert something at the beginning of the vector, just write v1 dot begin in the position and value is anything you want, suppose a, and suppose you want to insert it at some its position. So what do we do it, and this insert function returns an iterator to the new position that where this new element has been inserted. Okay, so I guess this is all about the basic functions of the iterators. You can do in insert, suppose you want to insert at the second position, just do v1 dot begin plus 2. Okay, v1 dot begin plus 2. So this is all about the basics of the vectors. If you want me to demonstrate anything, I have provided the code in the description. I have even provided some resources and links for you to go through them and learn about things. I have displayed to you, let us do a recap. I displayed to you pushback function, 3-4 ways to initialize the vectors, fill to fill the vector with of a given size with some value, auto function which initializes the iterator of whatever kind you want, then use vector.begin, vector.end, c end, r begin, r end, and then what do we learned? We printed how to print a vector, then we learned the sort function, we learned the vector of characters, we can make a vector of long end, we can make, okay, I will tell you one last thing, we can make a vector of integers. Just experiment about this. We can make even a 2D vector as vector of integers of v of 1000, like just an array of 1000, each dynamically allocated. Just experiment with these things. We then learned the lower bound upper bound function, and like I want to conclude this class now. If you have any doubts, leave it in the comment section. Hope you understood vectors and its associated functions. Please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching.